Welcome to Grassroots Gaston's second podcast. My name is Jen, and joining me in hosting tonight's discussion is my good friend Margaret.
Hello.
Also joining us in this discussion about the recently passed Gaston County budget are Vice Chairman and Commissioner representing the Dallas Township, Tracy Philbeck.
Good evening.
Commissioner Chad Brown representing the River Bend Township.
Good evening.
And Jason Williams representing the Gastonia Township.
Good evening, thanks.
Thanks, gentlemen, so much for taking the time to be here. And I so much appreciate the opportunity to get the education that you guys are offering to give me tonight. Part of our mission here at Grassroots Gaston is to educate people where we can. Civics isn't being taught the way it was when I was in school. And to be quite honest with you, a lot of individuals just simply are not as interested in it as they should be. And hopefully we're getting more and more people interested. So if I could, from either of you guys, get just a brief description of what a county commissioner does. Anybody?
A county commissioner does lots of things. I think one of the main things that we do is we come up with the county budget and pass the budget, but during day-to-day events, you could be dealing with the state representative on an issue that affects us locally. You could be dealing with someone from Washington that affects us locally. You could be dealing with issues such as the marriage amendment, or you may be dealing with a multi-million-dollar company looking to come to Gaston County. One of the funny things that I personally been able to experience is in one day I was helping a lady call, and she had a goat stuck in a fence. So I went from helping her resolve that issue to later that evening working with a multi-billion-dollar company looking to come to Gaston County. So it runs the spectrum of what we do.
Okay, so not only are you creating the budget, you're also trying to boost the economics or the economy of Gaston County as well.
Yes.
Okay. Well, not only that, it sounds like you guys have a lot to do with the civility of the county as well. As, you know, you brought up the Marriage Act. That certainly has a lot to do more with the family values than the political side of things. Okay.
I think one of the things that Tracy left out that we want to talk about as well is to provide the effective and efficient to make affordable services leading to a safe, secure, and healthy community, an environment of growth, and promote favorable quality of life.
Okay.
Well, I think the interesting thing about being a county commissioner that I found is you're expected to be an expert in so many different fields, whether it's planning, economic development, healthcare, education. Like Tracy said, you can go in the morning dealing with education and the school board, and later on that night you're working with Caramont, the local hospital, on the fact that we're ranked 81st out of 100 in North Carolina as far as being a healthy county. So it's so diverse, and you're expected to know so much about so many different things that it can be overwhelming, but the fact is you're responsible for over 205,000 people, and like Chad said, you have to provide affordable services that they can have access to and really be knowledgeable about what you're doing. At the same time, dealing with social issues like abortion, marriage, and other issues that affect the moral fabric of our county.
You're the newest commissioner, right? You were just elected last year.
I'm the youngest, newest, best-looking commissioner on the commission.
And you two are up for re-election this year?
That is correct.
In 2014.
2014. Okay.
I think one of the things that we also lead into that a lot of people don't recognize, we provide the funding for the school system's capital. That's what we're charged with as a commissioner. There are things that make us go above and beyond for those that we do also help provide the monies that go toward the supplement for the teachers. We get criticized a lot lately about the things we're doing in funding, but our number one objective is basically for capital needs to where we turn over the money to the school board and they direct how they use it. So it's not really a stipulation that's in our hands. We do try to provide the adequate funding that they see fit, and a lot of times we want to make sure that we're doing that. We think we are appropriately. I think we could all say we could do a better job if we had millions of dollars to just throw at something, but I don't think you can throw money at the solution sometimes as well.
That is so true. Sometimes I think no matter how good you guys do your job as far as budgeting the money, I think individual departments really seem to kind of squander what they get. One other question that was posed to me by a former principal at East Gaston. I won't go into the context of the question, but I will just ask the basic premise. What qualities does it take to be a productive county commissioner?
I think one thing it would really provide for the citizens if it were full-time. I think if you think about it, we all run lives, have families, and do lots of things that are included within that. And we're part-time for that purpose. I think that would be one of the gist that I think that could help promote some different activities. But one of the things is we're relying on the people who do the day-to-day activities inside of our own employment and administration. So I think that's some of the things that you see that change the variables of how you get into it. We're having to rely so much on when somebody does something, we either take them at face value until we can verify what the information that they're actually giving to us. So like I said, a lot of people can say a lot of things that they want to say about the commission. I will say about this 7, I've never seen anybody work as hard as these 7 people to do the things that we've done to try to help these people.
I think one of the qualities of being an effective county commissioner is you have to have a passion for people. You deal with all types of people, all types of backgrounds from all over the county. And I think it takes someone that truly has a passion to serve people. Second, I think it takes someone that has the stamina to keep up with folks, all the different meetings that you go through and things of that nature. So I would say the 2 biggest qualities, of course you want someone who's properly educated, that has some real world experience. But what I have found for those people who have a passion to serve their community, that's the biggest quality. If you have that, then most of the time you can work with people and help resolve their issues.
I would just piggyback on what these guys said. I think the ability to listen to people, I think that's something that is really missing. I think when your citizens speak out on issues, the ability to listen and really hear what they're trying to say, like Tracy pointed out, when you have a passion for working with people and helping people and dealing with them, you have to hear what they're trying to tell you. And a lot of times they don't know how to articulate it and government talk. And you have to hear, hey, what are they wanting out of local government? What do they expect out of us? I think in addition to that, you spoke about it a minute ago, you have to surround yourself with the right people and be able to delegate those things. You talked about department heads. As I spoke earlier, you're expected to be an expert in all these fields. Well, the fact is, it's not really practical to be an expert. But if you surround yourself with good people that share your same values and your same principles, that are experts in those fields, I think that's a big deal when you have somebody that you can reach out to and talk to and delegate that to if you really trust those individuals. And I think that leads into another conversation that we'll probably talk about, and that's the fact that we're looking for a new county manager. We have to find somebody that we can trust and somebody that's going to hold department heads and other people accountable for every government taxpayer dollar that's spent. And I think that's a part of finding good quality people to surround ourselves with, because the fact is, as Chad pointed out, we don't have time to micromanage departments. So we have to make sure somebody's there and in place to make sure that things are being done right.
I think one of the things we could do is just encourage the open and continuous positive communication between county staff its citizens, the county commission. Those are all things that we have to start getting into is positive communications. I know in my 3 years here, it seems like every issue that is brought up has some stigma to it that it brings the negative side to it. And if we can just encourage positive communications, I think throughout, I think that's one of the encouraging factors that we can get into that's going to help this community.
Okay, let's move along. Now that we've got a little bit of education on what the county commission does and what you guys see as positive qualifications for the job. Margaret?
Yes, can one of y'all walk us through the budget process from beginning to end? How long it takes, things like that.
I think the budget starts the day after you pass the budget for the previous year. Not necessarily for the commissioners, somewhat to say, but we do have budget changes that are going on throughout the year that are basically managed by us. I think the budget staff is continual on the things that they start looking for to get ready for next year's budget. But I'd say probably around November and December, those people delve into what the actual budget numbers are after the audit comes back. And then I think as you approach January and February, the manager plus the commissioners are getting ready to see what this budget would be at either a retreat, sort type of staffing meetings that they have. But I think we really get it to our hands probably about February. From February to April, I think you'll see the commission really delve into what's going on.
Okay.
That is normally how it goes. I will tell you how I think it should go, and it doesn't always go this way.
Okay.
Which is one of the reasons I voted against this year's budget. What I think the commission should do, actually at our next meeting, August the 13th, I'm going to be bringing forth a set of priorities for the board to vote on. What I think we should do is set priorities. Once we've set priorities, take the current budget that was passed and massage or mold that budget to fit those priorities. And then as you work every day and every week in your meetings and you start doing your planning retreats, all of your budgeting process should be around 4 or 5 main key things that the county deems are priorities for our community. And I think that's the process for which we allocate funds or we move funds around, whether you're looking at a tax increase or a tax cut. I think any type of budget has to begin with those priorities. Most people do it every day. I get up on my house payment, my car payment, my insurance, gas. These are priorities that have to be paid. Once those things are done, then we can look at other areas. So people have to do that in their private lives. Businesses do it every day, and I'm hoping, and that's something that Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Brown and I all agree on, is setting some priorities.
Which it seems like is not a very high priority for the entire commission.
Well, I think you have 7 elected individuals. We're not elected as a group or a team. I think each commissioner, in fairness, probably has their own priorities and things they'd like to see accomplished. But at the end of the day, I think it's prudent to have some type of group dynamics, some type of priorities we all can agree on. That way we can just get from point A to point B. That hasn't happened. We've talked about priorities in planning retreats and things of that nature, but we've never really took the next step of saying by resolution, the current elected board, this is their priorities, and going forward, when we fund things, this is the areas that we're going to really pay attention to. And if I lose my election or the board changes over, the new board, what they should do is have a meeting, decide what those priorities are, and go forward.
What do you think the chances of that happening are?
I think Tuesday we're going to get some priorities passed, and I think that has a good chance.
Well, I certainly give you props, and I wish you the best of luck on that, because I think our county is in dire need of help. I think we need to get some priorities set straight, and we need to get some work done.
Well, if you want, these are the priorities that I plan on bringing forward. Job creation and economic development as a #1 priority. Gaston County will be attractive for businesses and jobs through its investment in education, infrastructure development, transportation, cultural activities, center city development, travel and tourism. Gaston County will provide a business-friendly environment that encourages lower taxes, less regulations for growth and stability. As far as education, Gaston County would have an integrated education system, public and private, that brings together students, families, civic and business leaders to ensure all citizens get the education and training necessary for successful lives in an ever-changing world. And third, healthy community. Gaston County will collaborate and invest with their local hospitals, health department, and parks and rec to improve the health and longevity of their citizens. And fourth, which I think is a main function of government, is Gaston County will collaborate with local police departments, our own Gaston County Police Department, to make sure that Gaston County is a safe place to live and work. So those are the 4 priorities that actually Commissioner Carpenter and I have been working on. We're going to bring before the board. And again, does it cover every spectrum that I think we should work on? No. But I think what it does do is give us, there's a good scripture in the Bible that said, a prudent man looketh well to his goings. And I think that it provides a light as we walk through the woods here and say, okay, here's the path, this is the way we're going to go on. And I think it's something that all the commission can work around, rally around, and the community can work with. Another good thing about these priorities is the Gaston Regional Chamber has just come out with, I think it's around 8 priorities, and these coincide with those. So what you have is the business community and your local government both kind of having some of the same priorities where we can have collaboration across the board. And that's going to force us, when things come before the board, to make decisions where normally we may, okay, we'll do this. Once you have these priorities, then we'll decide how does that fit within the plan for Gaston County.
As long as we have a plan, we can get to where we're going.
Absolutely.
If you have no plan, you end up lost, running around in circles.
I think Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Williams, and I have a plan.
Well, that's what matters. As long as we can keep everybody going in the same direction without people straying off, and we know that happens quite often. So.
But I also want to add to something to the priority list. I think it's good that we all get on the same page along with our community, but I think it's, as an elected official, it's our job to find these priorities to try to move them forward. And the ones that we are lacking in, that we've pushed behind the 8 ball, whether it be education, public safety, quality of life, economic development, we got to figure out a way also, and seeing how those priorities are put into place, that we can get them to the forefront of what we're actually trying to do as well. Not just have a master plan. We got to figure out how to get it put into place.
You have to figure out how to achieve it, and I'm sure with the brains that we have sitting in this room that can happen.
Of course, you 2 ladies knock the guys up.
Well, okay.
Thank you.
Put me and Margaret in charge, and we'll have this thing knocked out in a matter of hours. Okay. As I was reading over the budget, the proposed budget. I found it hard to get past the letter, guys. I really did. I found it hard to get past this letter from the county manager. I started reading it, and to be honest with you, it sounded like a bunch of excuses as to why we can't do this and why we can't do that. And well, if you don't give me the tax raises that I'm asking for, then we have to cut this and this and this and this. And to be honest with you, I think I heard a little bit of Obama in there. I mean, really. And a couple times I actually had to put it down and walk off. I found some contradictions in there. You know, I found, and that's just in the however many pages this letter is, you know, that's without even getting to the budget. And I'm reading it and I'm thinking, No wonder this person no longer has a job. Really? So can you guys tell me what happened here? I mean,
Well, I think you look at the budget itself. I think there was discrepancies that we all saw. It wasn't something that one of us pointed out and said, I don't like this particular. I think everybody had a different issue with some parts of the budget. Mine clearly was on some spending that we were doing during a tax increase.
but see, I haven't even got to the budget yet. I'm still in the letter.
But
I mean, you know, I just,
Jennifer, I think what you see anytime you're dealing with a government bureaucrat, you're going to get somebody who's educated in that field. You're going to get somebody that continually sees the way out as another tax increase, or we have to keep doing things the traditional government way. And I think that's one thing that we had talked about, you know, when we made our decision to go a different direction, was we didn't want to continue down the path we were going. We set, not necessarily some priorities, but we made some decisions at our retreat in February where we said, this is the direction we want to go with certain departments. These are some changes that we want to make to our budget. Not quite to the degree that Commissioner Philbeck is leading on with the priorities, which is the way we need to move forward. But we did say, these are some things that we want to do with our budget. If you'll look at that proposed budget, I haven't got to it yet, but when you look at that, it didn't reflect the will of the board. We made some changes. We said, hey, this is the direction we want to go. That was not reflected in that proposed budget. And I think when you're talking about that letter, you're just getting government talk. You referenced Obama, but the fact is that's what you're going to get with a bureaucrat who's not, quote unquote, thinking outside the box. They're thinking within that bureaucratic box. And this is the way out. There's no new ways. As conservatives, I think we three are conservatives and self-proclaimed conservatives. I'm not ashamed of that. We tend to look at things differently. How can we work better with the private sector? What can we do different? If we continue down this path, it's going to be year after year of proposed tax increases. The fact is our citizens can't afford that.
no.
Our families can't afford that. So, yeah, you're right. And the outrage that you read that letter with was probably equal to the concern that we had when we read that letter. We got it at one of the meetings, and if you go watch the meeting where we received the budget, Commissioner Brown was pretty upset because we started looking through that budget and said, this is not the direction we wanted to go. So we share your frustration when we got that.
And I think to piggyback off of that, one of the things that needs to be said, I was just looking back through some documents, and we talked about the budget that the commission was wanting to uphold for the community. In one of Mr. Winter's emails, he said, I'm willing to do whatever the board's direction will be. Well, obviously, that didn't happen. The board had proposed many a cut back in February as we talked about the timeline of doing things. And it's not to go back and play hindsight or devil's advocate. What the problem is, as we see all these inaccuracies of we have to do these things, I think Commissioner Philbeck pointed out in the budget session, even though we're having a tax increase, none of the other places that we were actually wanting to make impacts were addressed with this budget. The only thing that was actually addressed was the school bonds. I agree. The school bonds were enacted in 2007 before anybody in this room was actually on the board to make those claims of passing a budget that had a tax increase. I think some people had looked at that as saying, we'll put it off or kick the can, hopefully somebody else can pick it up. I think that our job that we looked at in this budget was how much or how many of the increases in dollar amount, which is about $14 million since I've been on the budget, since I've been on the commission. Probably I think it was $16 million since Commissioner Philbeck had been on the budget a year before that, and I think since Jason has been there, you look at this year, it was $9 million. So it's a lot of money that was increased that we were having to pick up for on a lot of these piggyback things that had been happening. I did use the word amenities. I still think there were some amenities that were in there that we could have taken out. They could have saved us money and basically prioritized the different places. we could have taken from one department some of the things that they were asking for that actually may not be needed or not a priority to what the commission's direction was trying to lead to, that we could have superimposed into another piece of the budget that could have helped someone who was actually getting a cut that basically couldn't sustain one.
Going back to the letter, I think we have a lot of good county employees. And government is not necessarily a bad thing if it's in its proper place and its proper role. But what I have found out is the number one rule of bureaucracy is to protect the bureaucracy. And when you read the letter that the county manager put out, I think that's basically what it was. I think Mr. Winters is a very good person. I had a great relationship, but I think after 14 years of being in Gaston County, having relationships with the department heads and different employees, watching the board change over and over, I think it got to a point where it was hard to tell people no. And I think it got to a point where it was hard to say, you know what, we're only taking this amount in and we're going to have to live within our means and work within that. Instead, what we were getting was, you need to increase tax, we need to expand this program, we can't do this, we can't do that. And I think there was a majority of the board that said, no, we think we have a plan, we want to have priorities, and we think we can move forward without constantly putting tax increase after tax increase on the citizens of the county. Currently, right now, we're the third highest taxed county in the state of North Carolina. Now, people will try to explain that away, if, well, your values are lower and things of that nature. But I explain it like this. When you're having to spend more money out of your pocket on the same type of government service, and there's really not a plan to move out of that, you're in trouble. And there's two ways you raise revenue. You either increase the taxes or you grow the tax base. For me, I believe we should increase the tax base. We should grow in that base so people will want to come here, business can thrive here, and doing that is going to create more revenue. And the way to do that is less taxes, less regulation, good schools, a favorable business climate. I think having nice downtowns, a good quality of life, all of those things factor into that. And I'm not saying there's never a time that you shouldn't increase tax. If that was the case, you probably wouldn't never even have a tax rate.
Exactly.
But I do think people don't mind. I'll speak for myself. I do not mind paying taxes when I trust the folks
Who's spending the money?
who are spending the money. But in the current climate that we're in, whether it's Washington on a state level or a local level, just a lot of that's just not really happening. I work. I've got 2 kids. Got to get up and go to work every morning. I've got to pay bills. I've got to pay workers' comp and insurance and look at work and gas and things of that nature. I see the effect and the impact. And when you take a business like mine, very small business, just little increments of money here and there in each little area ends up eroding my bottom line.
And it adds up over time.
Right.
I don't mind paying my taxes. I don't mind paying sales taxes, property taxes. When it starts bothering me is when I find out things like the kids at Southwest Middle School are actually, they don't get new school books. They don't get new textbooks. They get used textbooks from other schools, where other schools are getting new textbooks. And I'm like, Or when my niece comes home and has to use my computer or whatever because she doesn't have enough textbooks in her classroom. And I know people say, well, that's the state's job. Well, have you looked at county budget? County budget provides money for our schools too.
Well, and I think that's where your commissioners should do what it can to hold the school board accountable. We're mandated to pay for the capital side of schools. We're not mandated to do teacher supplements. We're not mandated to do teacher assistants. We're not mandated to do all these other areas. It's the operations and the capital. That's what we're mandated to do. What you find, however, is once we transfer the money to the school system, they can do whatever they want to do with it. I think where you hold the school board accountable is, and this is something Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Williams and I have talked about at great length, is what we're going to try to do is either start withholding funds or saying, or making them agree ahead of time on line item budgets of where, okay, we're going to give you this amount, but this is what it has to go to. That's all the commission can do in that arena. I think another thing the commission can do is, I think, to be vocal. As a business owner in this community, as a lifelong resident in this community, kids that are growing up in this community, I want a good education system here in Gaston County, whether that's homeschooling, private schools, or public schools. In the state of North Carolina, you have a right to a public education. And as far as the county commissioner's role, our role is to fund, to the best that we can, that public side of education. But once those things are done, I think you begin to ask the school board, how are you spending your money? Not too long ago, the school board hired a consultant, and the consultant came back and said, you need to close 3 schools. If you close these 3 schools, you will save $27 million. The county commission did not hire the consultant. We didn't tell them to do that. I don't know where people fall, whether they think they should be closed or not, but here's a fact. The consultant that they hired, that is very well known throughout this state, said, Gaston County School System, you can save $27 million. But what they did is they did not close the schools.
And they opened a new one.
Right. So what would have happened if they would have merged some schools together? They could have got rid of those buildings, sold those lands. Actually, they revert back to the county.
Yeah.
You could have took the $27 million. You could have given teachers supplements for probably 2 or 3 years and paid for it. You could have invested in technology. You could have invested, with Common Core, which I'm not a fan of Common Core.
I'm not either, but we'll hold that for another day.
But with it coming down the pipe, technology is going to be even more needful.
Yeah.
So regardless of how you feel, whether the school board did the right thing or the wrong thing, those are the tough decisions that have to be made that involve real dollars that can make a real impact. If you take it a step further, I think the Gazette reported a while back that upper level management were getting 12 and 13% increases. You know what teachers received? Zero.
Yeah.
And my thinking is, and I understand it takes good salaries and benefits to attract good people. However, in the economy that we're in, when you have such a need for technology, teachers' assistants, adequately funding teachers and things of that nature, every single dollar counts. Again, I take that back to my experience every day. Every dollar counts. I have to watch where it goes. So those are things that we can do. And we have met with some school board members. I'm happy to say that Chris Howe and Doc Guthrie have a great relationship with them, work with them well. And I have others too, Jeff Ramsey, Mark Stevens. We've met with them. But I think making sure we adequately fund the areas, they're held accountable for where that money goes, and then as leaders, being loud about the fact of whatever dollars you have, whether state, federal, or local, you have to be accountable. A lot of people don't know this, but the Gaston County Schools budget is double what the Gaston County budget is.
Yeah.
And they're the largest employer in this county.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the North Carolina Department of Commerce website. The top 3 of the top 4 largest employers in Gaston County Schools, Gaston County
County.
and the city of Gastonia. One out of the top 4, 3 are government.
That's sad.
That's not a good thing for Gaston
No,
County.
it's not. It's mind blowing actually. I knew Gaston County Schools was right in the top 3. I didn't realize that they were the biggest.
Number one. I think to follow up on what Tracy said, there's a lot of criticism about school funding, and the fact is, there's probably some places that we could improve. I wouldn't say that we shouldn't give the schools more money. We probably should. The key comes in, where Commissioner Philbeck pointed out, it's hard to give more money when they're not using the money what we would consider adequately. And I think it's our place to hold them accountable for the funds that they already have before you can go add additional money. So I think if they were doing the responsible thing with the money, if they were taking steps, again, getting back to innovative ways of saving money, if they said, hey, we found a way to save $27 million, we're going to act on that. We're going to go do that. There's some other things that we can do. And they still came back to us and said, hey, this is what we're doing differently. This is what we're trying to do. We still need additional money for technology or something of that nature. I think we would be willing to listen to that. I don't want to speak for the board, but I'm pretty sure that that's something we would be willing to hear them out on. The fact is, we've given them money in the past for capital needs. We've specifically given money for capital projects that they've then turned around and used for other things. Then they come back a few months later and they'll say, hey, we need the money for this capital project. Well, the county commission's already addressed that project. We can't help they spent that money on something else. It's sort of like if you give your daughter money for gas and she goes and takes her friends to Taco Bell and the next day she comes and says, well, I still don't have gas. Well, yeah, it's not my problem.
Sorry, darling.
That's right.
I love you, but
We
you need
can't
to
help.
start cutting grass.
We can't help you spend that money somewhere else. So I don't necessarily want to debate whether or not there should be more money, but we can't keep throwing money at a group that the community, not necessarily just the Gaston County Commissioners, but the community feels is not being responsible with the money they have. And that's what we receive. It's bad when we get calls, emails, and messages saying, don't give schools more money. This is coming from parents of students at Gaston County Schools.
I've got a daughter at Webb Street.
Well,
I'm right there with you.
Well, and they're saying,
and
don't.
I'm one to think Webb Street needs more money, but I'm saying, don't give it to them.
So,
One of the things that I look at is my wife is a teacher, so I see both sides and everything that's spent and how it's spent. I think some of the trivial things are happening is when they take money and if they don't spend all that money, they want to revert rather than saying, hey, let's do a good thing and give it back. Let's just say they had a capital need that was $4 million. They come in under budget and it was $3 million. They should revert that extra $1 million back to the county to be able to outlay something else in the capital improvements position. What they do is they come and say, hey, we want to move this to our general fund or to another subsidy. And they have that, and it's not just in the capital outlay. It comes in every different walk, and those are some of the things that personally I don't like seeing. But I will tell you, one of the things that I will do is anything for Webb Street I would go after, because some of those kids don't have the same advantages that we have. And
I agree.
But I'm just saying, but those are some of the things that are real sore for some of the things that we could actually do. The pool was one thing. I think everybody looks at that as saying the pool there may be an amenity type of thing, but those kids really need something like that to help them get through their daily activities. So those are some of the things that I see are totally different. I guess the time is up now. But I look at that and I say, but like I said, my wife is a teacher. I see some of the things on the inside that she talks to me about that are things that I look at and say, how can this keep going on? Just as far as, you talked about the books, not just on the book side of it. Imagine you're a teacher who's having to teach a class with a prepared syllabus. You use the cartridge they give you to be able to produce paper copies of your textbook, and then halfway through the year, you're out of your allotted amount of copies. Well, then they give you grief because you have to go back and say, hey, I'm out of copies. I understand what they're trying to do is be frugal about it, but the thing is, when somebody gets to that point, Do you cut them off and say, hey, you're done for your teaching for the year, good luck to you?
Yeah.
It was a big issue, and I think those are some of the things that I see in the spending side that could really change to help the teachers as well.
And I'll say this to kind of put a bow on it for me. It sounds like we've probably been very critical of the school board and administration. This is
It's
what
deserving.
well, but I think this is what we've done. Let me move us forward. This is what we've done. Instead of just sitting back and being critical, we've reached out and said, you know what, we're not just going to play the blame game. We've reached out and met with, like Tracy said, a couple of school board members, Dodd Guthrie, Mark Stevens, Jeff Ramsey, Chris Howe, and anybody that'll meet with us. We want to meet with them and figure out how we can move this relationship forward, as opposed to just sitting back and letting it kind of go stagnant. What can we do to make it better? And I think we've got some good ideas. I think we've got some things that we're working on that we should be rolling out. So we're really excited about that relationship, but that kind of gives you the background. But I don't think Commissioner Philbeck Brown and I are just sitting back letting it go. We want to be proactive and figuring out how we can move education forward.
Absolutely. I think you have to take a critical eye and look through your budgets to make sure money's properly spent. But I think you have to be willing to compromise, work with other folks. And let me tell you what I'm just going to tell you two things that's pretty open that we're working on. One, we increased the school budget this year. I think every commissioner was okay with this, by $1.2 million.
A bunch, yeah.
That was for the new operations under Stuart Kramer. Second, I think, and this was actually Commissioner Williams' idea, I think it's a very good idea, because education is a priority for us. What we're looking at doing is some of the land that we sell through economic development, instead of just letting all of that money roll back to economic development, actually using some of that money to target specific line items such as technology. So we're not just sitting here saying, well, the school board's not doing its job and we're not willing to work together. What we're saying is, I think it's tough to be a school board member. I didn't run for the school board. My job is not to run the schools. My job is to adequately fund the capital and operation side of Gaston County Schools. But I think it's been some kind of tough luck. I think we have been tough on these issues. At the same time, you also see us come back around and willing to invest. And I think that's the approach you have to take.
Well, I think
Give and
also
take.
we've added some areas to them and gave them some incentives for revenue streams, and they basically turned a blind eye to some of those to help in some of the areas that they wanted as well. So like I said, I am tough on the schools because I think they're doing a great job. I think they could do better. That's not saying I think I think the county commission could do better than things we do. So it's not saying that it's not tough, but I do think I'm tough on them. And the reason that I'm tough on is because we bring ideas that come that they don't just benefit the schools. They benefit a lot of the other things that go on here. Travel and tourism through some of the things we're doing in our schools. We're getting ready to open up Stuart Kramer, which is going to open up a beautiful auditorium to help some of those type of incentives that we can get to have people come to our community because of things we have. And I think that's something that the schools have to recognize and say, hey, when there's an opportunity there to make that, we need to be able to capitalize on it and move forward.
All right, let's, in keeping with the letter here,
We ain't got to the budget yet.
no, we're almost there, guys. There's just one other section in this letter that I want to talk about, and it's the county challenges that they list here. And it says the proposed budget includes an additional $740,000 in health insurance for active employees, retirees, and dependent coverage. Is that on top of the $1.4 million increase from last year? I mean, is this attributed to Obamacare and
It's. I don't think that's attributed to Obamacare. I could be wrong. Jason's the insurance agent here.
you're the devil in the details.
I will say this. I think that is the increase in your annual premium, from my understanding.
It is, but the fact is, I personally met with our insurance broker from the county. I saw that increase, was very concerned about that. I personally set up a meeting and met with them. we went over it. We've quoted it out. We've done everything that we could on that. In fairness, I think that is attributed to Obamacare. The broker told us that not only are we seeing the increase this year, it's going to be at least that next year. So again, that's something completely out of the commission control. So in fairness, you know, that's kind of where that's at. You can thank the voters for the hope and change that they voted for.
But in every budget summary that I read, and I think there's 55 of them in this, every single department but two asked for salary and benefit increases. Everyone but two. You guys, the commissioner and clerks, and the grounds maintenance department.
Well, I'll say this. That is why I supported a flat budget. In my own business, the worst thing I've had to do in business about a couple years ago, I had to let some employees go. The economy was bad. I lost a very good contract in my business, and we had to go through some change and some very hard times. Once we were pretty lean, I've asked each of my departments, again I'm talking about my company, you know what, we've got some increases in gas, we've got some increases in insurance and benefits, but we can't pass those along to the customer. Because if you pass them along to the customer, my price is going to be too high, they're going to go with someone else. So you know what we're going to have to do? We're going to have to absorb it. And I've got good people, and they did. I think businesses and citizens throughout this county, this state, this nation has had to do that. So I think it was prudent to ask the departments of Gaston County to say, hey, this year we're going to hold you flat. I understand you have an increase in benefits, like Commissioner Williams said, as far as insurance, but we're going to ask you to look for ways in your budget where you can absorb that. Because you know what? We can't pass that on to the citizens. They can't afford it. And I think Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Brown, and I all supported a flat budget. Now, there were things as this budget went on, because in my opinion, because there was no priorities, it was kind of schizophrenic, to say the least, with all these different moving parts. I was willing to support the budget and support the commissioners on the flat budget. And I think between that, I think there were some tax increases that certain. I think Commissioner Carpenter wanted to raise taxes 10 cents and things of that nature. So we never really got to any consensus other than I think Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Williams, myself, Commissioner Fraley, and Commissioner Price all, I think, agreed pretty much on a flat budget. Not because we wanted to hurt county departments, not because we didn't care about our employees, because it is the reality of every single business owner and citizen in this county.
Well, if you go back and you start adding up the increases in salary and benefits, and I went back and I done the math, and they are a lot more than the $740,000 in health insurance. You know, so I mean, I
want to add one thing to the insurance question you posed. One of the things we have with 1,400 employees, we are self-insured. The employees have also gained some of that $740,000 in which you speak of that is incurring because of that. They talk about the increase they had to their insurance. If they were all on either the PPO or the HSA, they would not incur that expense. So it also would help what drives down our particular part of that budget. So those are also some things that help that.
All right, okay, something else in this letter. It says the proposed budget includes increasing employee retiree costs by 4% only for the plans that are generating the highest cost. Why would you, I mean, they're generating the highest cost. Why are you going to increase?
Again, that's why I supported a flat budget. And there's a difference between what the county manager recommends this was what he was recommending, there was a huge gap between what he was recommending and what I supported. I supported a flat budget. So as you go through those, I think as you go through that is one of the reasons we felt, that is one of the reasons that we felt it was better to maybe look for another county manager, see if we can get some different direction, some different leadership in the community.
Okay, so this man is completely gone. He's vacated the building. He is like Elvis, right? I mean, he is completely gone, and because I mean, there is one place in here where he says that where he has defunded the wellness program, but then later on, or just before that, he says that he has budgeted for how did he word it? He had budgeted for a program to promote healthy living and to conduct health risk assessments. Hello, that is the textbook definition of a wellness program.
Right.
But then he goes on to say, we're saving $62,000 because I'm defunding this program. You can't have it both ways. So, but this letter, I'm surprised I got through it because, like I said, by the time I got to the end of it, my head was about to explode, and I really didn't know if I was going to be able to make it to the budget.
Well, I urge you to go back and watch the meeting where we received the budget, and I think you'll see Commissioner Brown's head also about to explode as we got it and started looking through it that night. So I encourage you to go back and watch
My granny said
it.
hopping mad. That's what my granny used to call it. She would say that she was hopping mad. She would be so mad that she just couldn't stand
I think
herself
I just used the
anymore.
word disappointed because of some of the things we had gone. Like you asked earlier about how long we really actually delve into the budget. We worked in this budget from February to the time we received the budget. Just about daily, we would get an update or something that we were trying to talk about. We had our own type of ideas. None of our ideas were reflected in what we talked about in February at the retreat. None were reflected into the budget that we received that first night. Nor the next night when the county manager, and basically, which is the part that when I really lost my favor with him and what I did to vote against him as staying our county manager, was he asked us to create a budget that make up your own budget and send it in. And I thought that was the most inappropriate comment I ever heard. Here's somebody who's making $170,000, $180,000, and that's his main job is to focus on what happens in running this county and presenting a budget that's going to be not, hey, let's just throw it out there and see what sticks.
That is not a good sign. And you say he was in this job for 14 years? Maybe you got just a wee bit too comfortable, do you think? Okay. I think the biggest thing in the budget that concerns me, actually, is county attorney.
Okay.
Almost $400,000.
What?
There's two of them there, plus the staff, and
I
that's
think it's
all.
the whole department.
Yeah, the whole department.
Is the county the only client this attorney has?
He's full-time staff.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
he works full-time.
He's full-time staff, and that department is your attorney, another attorney who is his assistant, and they share a secretary. And I think you also look at the operations within that. I'll say this though,
Well,
when you're looking at a $230+ something million budget, 1,400 employees. With all the workers' comp issues, I'll just say this: a small company within $3 to $5 million could easily spend $100,000 or more on legal fees. So, is that an area we could look at, be more efficient? Maybe so, but when you look at the big picture of most major corporations that have $230 million budget, they're going to have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 attorneys. So that looking at it from a micro level, that may seem huge, but when you back up and view it from the micro level that it really is and what all they have to do, I don't think that's a lot. That doesn't mean that we can't look through that department and see if there's any inefficiencies. But I think when you look at it in the big picture of things, that's pretty normal. Let me give you an example. One lawsuit that we dealt with had the potential to be $300,000 or $400,000. That's one lawsuit. So imagine all your employees. If an employee gets in a wreck, if an employee falls down the stairs, if you have a sexual harassment suit, I mean, you name it, a whole host of issues that they have to deal with. So it may look like a lot, but you have to have that type of representation. I'm not saying you need to spend that amount of money, but I think you're going to have a couple attorneys, assistants, and some type of operation within county government.
Okay, well, it doesn't sound too bad now that I know that we are his only client, you know. If he was, you know, had a private practice and was, you know, then...
Actually, what it is, can't remember the name of the law firm, but it's a law firm that he had came out of. He works for us, but that covers that. Plus we have a law firm. Then you have his assistant who is also an attorney. So but his specific job is just Gaston County, without a doubt.
Okay.
And it is a full-time, I think it's a 24-hour-a-day type of job, just with the liability and everything else that we have to deal with.
Okay.
I mean, you're doing negotiations for hospital, you're doing multi-million-dollar land deals, you're doing grants, incentives, a whole spectrum of things that they have to deal with.
Okay.
I think if there was some consolidation or some type of factor that could lower that budget, it'd be very minuscule, maybe $40,000, $50,000 you could find that you could actually pull out of that department. But as a whole, I don't think the $400,000 is that big of an issue on that particular premise.
Okay. All right, one other item that, and these are just the two main budget items that concern me, and then we'll talk briefly about the fair shake that you guys get from the Gazette, and then we'll be done, okay? Because you know how fair you guys are treated there. The other main question I have is the medical examiner's office. I know that we don't provide the salary and benefit. That is a state-funded liability, correct? With the salary and benefits.
I'll let Commissioner Brown talk with that. He has the most experience in that area.
We not currently have a medical examiner that our coroner is the one we don't have. The medical examiner is put forth from the hospital. I think they're the ones that put that together for us. But like I said, a lot of that funding does come through different principles. We do have to provide it. I think last year you saw the budget that I really would jump up and down about was $800,000 worth of body bags that the medical examiner said that we had to have, and that did get through and pass in the budget of $800,000. So I did not vote against. I did vote against that budget last year because that $800,000 worth of body bags was included in the budget.
Okay, would that be there was a jump in operating cost from 11-12 to 12-13. It went from $131,000 to $215,000.
That is correct.
Okay, and that continues this year.
That is correct.
Why? Is that is that the body bags?
I was told it was a typo, but
Right,
I was told it was a typo, but like I said, typos shouldn't be happening at the end of budget sessions when you're ready to
Typos
vote on.
shouldn't be happening when you're a professional and you have assistants who are supposed to do your proofreading.
And I think that one of the things that you see out of that budget, like I said, the medical examiner issue is something that we have to provide by law since we don't have a coroner to do that. Usually the coroner would be a more exorbitant amount of dollars we'd have to pay. So one of the things we do and are pushing it through this is the medical examiner just to pronounce these people dead when they go. They'll have to come over and see them. And see what the paperwork aligns and they sign off on it. But I think if you look at what happens as a whole, I don't think this is something that's an issue other than the body bags that I did vote against in the previous budget because I thought it was an inflated number just to hide things in the budget. But that budget did pass.
With the Okay, and you say this is supposed to be a typo in here with the $215,000, right? It is supposed to be a typo, right?
That is correct.
Okay, and I think that's it as far as this budget. And now let's move on to the great fairness you guys received from the Gazette and the great citizens of Gaston County, because I was reading some of the comments in the Gazette, and you guys are not very popular.
Well, I think the Gazette. I'll have to say this. I have no quarrels with the Gazette as a whole. I think they've done a good job of trying to represent our stances. I think in that they do give us a fair playing field. Not saying that they don't come up to the edge and try to make it an edgier story than what comes. But one of the things that they really do, they do try to help. I think one of the bad pieces of this is where you do have comments that can come from anywhere they want, whether it be from a liberal side to any other person who wants to go in there and comment, whether it's them, it's someone acting as you. Right now, there's a big Facebook phenomenon that's going on where people can go on, and I can go on as commissioner. I can make me a Commissioner Fieldbeck page tonight, and I can take his photo. I can copy it right onto my page and have it say Tracy Fieldbeck for County Commissioner, Tracy Fieldbeck page, and I can go in there and comment, and people think that's who it's coming from. And that's some of the things that I don't like about what's happening. We understand that we're going to make people mad in some of the things we do. We're not perfect by no means. Our job is to go out here and do what's right by our own philosophies and feelings. And I think as we're leading this community now, I think we're if you don't make someone mad out of that, you're not doing your job.
As far as the Gazette, I learned a long time ago that you don't argue with a man that has a barrel full of ink. I think the Gazette does some decent reporting. I do think there have been times they've taken commissioners out of context. As far as the comments, I think that's actually a good thing. I am all for transparency. I think what makes America great, what makes democracy work, is that we're not communist, and we don't all have to think like each other, and walk like each other and look like each other. So I'm perfectly fine. I understand that there's going to be folks that do not agree with my political philosophy. They're not going to agree that I'm a Christian, and I'm not ashamed of that. That I'll stand up for biblical principles and a biblical worldview. I understand when you make those decisions that people aren't going to like it. I think what you will find, though, in most of the comments, it's not all. I think there's some people that have some legitimate points of view that I need to look at. There have been times I've been wrong, that I've voted a certain way and went back and looked at it, talked to some folks. You know what? Maybe I will change my mind. But I think overall, when you look at some of those comments, especially the ones that are constantly berating the commission, it's about 4 or 5 folks. And most of those folks are really mad that I stood up for the marriage amendment. And ever since the marriage amendment, there's 4 or 5 very liberal, left-wing, extremist type individuals that are really doing everything they can. If I saved a child tomorrow, they would make a bad comment about it. And I'm okay with that. The great thing is this. I lived in this county my entire life. Like I said, I have 2 young children. I operate 2 businesses that are located in Gaston County, in Gastonia, matter of fact. I eat with folks every day. I mingle with the citizens. They know who I am. They know my passion for people. And they know that, you know what, you can approach me, you can sit down and we can talk about issues. And I'll tell you, I'm not right all the time.
But see, the thing is, now I haven't read it so much with you 2 guys, but several times, and I've heard you speak, and I've heard you make the same exact comments that I've only read partial comments in the Gazette with. And that bothers me, because I've heard you say, I did this because this, and this. But the Gazette will only pick out one little bitty tiny piece, and then that's it. They just like the article they had concerning the budget. The only comment they put in there from you was, I'm paraphrasing. I didn't vote for this budget because it only pays off our debt.
Right.
Making it sound like you didn't vote for this budget because it didn't raise taxes enough.
Right. Well,
I don't believe that's your philosophy.
Right.
But for anyone else who doesn't know you and hasn't heard you speak,
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're thinking about you.
Well, here again, the Gazette is a business. Their job is to sell papers.
Their job may be to sell papers, but they are also the media.
No, hear me. I agree. My point is, whatever they can do to sell papers, they will do. If that means not giving the whole story. When Commissioner Brown wanted to raise taxes, I said no, but they did not report it.
Now, what you going raising our taxes for?
But you understand.
I'm joking.
Before Jason jumps in,
I'm
but
joking.
Jason will have the best point of this. I think, like you see, we have a lot of people who are angered at one thing you do. It could be the smallest, most innocent thing that you could do, and it comes back to where everybody wants to make it a bigger deal. Like I said, there's so many things that are done now through either social media, the newspaper, any type of print type of things that these people will take and they will turn it, they will slander it, they will do anything they can. And I think one of the things you see is how these people are trying to operate. We understand what goes on, and it's a big thing for us. One of the things that lead us is our actions and how we lead our lives, and it's in a Christ-like manner. So I think those are some of the things that help us.
And I'll just say this to conclude. I appreciate you bringing this topic up. It's something that I've had to deal with more so recently. For example, I received a phone call from the Gazette after the budget. Commissioner Philbeck and I were together with some other people after the budget. And I'd made the statement. I was asked, what my thoughts were. And I said, well, I shared with some of the other commissioners that I would not support a budget that didn't address the priorities and wasn't more fiscally responsible. And I said, I thought that needed to start with our county manager. I thought that the budget he proposed was very irresponsible. And I said, I would not vote for a budget as long as Mr. Winters was there and presenting these types of budgets. The Gazette reporter took that statement and quoted me in the newspaper and said, I'd arranged a deal with Commissioner Fraley that I would vote for the budget if we fired the county manager. That could not be further from the truth. I was with a table full of people.
And we were all sitting there listening to the conversation.
I was with a table
we
full
were
of
listening
people.
to what he was saying as well. So I think some of the things that were said out of that were taken out of context fairly to the other side.
And so since then, I said, look, I'm not going to do the phone interviews or in person. I will email you any quotes. I emailed a quote last week that was in the newspaper incorrectly. I emailed that over. So I know I can sit back here and complain, but I feel what you're saying on that. I've been on the other side of being misquoted, taken out of context. It's very frustrating because the average person that doesn't know, Commissioner Philbeck, Commissioner Brown, and myself, they take it and believe that that's the case.
Exactly.
And that, I think, hurts our cause. And I don't mind being criticized for any votes, anything that I say, but it's difficult when you're criticized for things that you didn't say, and the way somebody misreports you. So that's very frustrating. But at the end of the day, I think, like Commissioner Philbeck and Brown said, we just have to do what we do and let that speak for itself.
I think the bottom line you look at is, regardless of what is, like I said, Jason, we know we're going to take criticism. People take shots at us every day, just because of the fact that we have either think we have some type of power trip, and it is really not about power. We have fun. You can see we had fun in here tonight. We try to make this as fun as job as you can, but it's politics. I mean, you think about it. You either have one side or the other, or you sit in the middle. Not a lot of places where you go one side and you hate everybody on the right, or you sit on one side and you hate everybody on the left. We sit at this trying to do the best thing for the citizens of Gaston County. I think one of the things that our convictions are, we're all led by the Lord, which is a good premise to base our faith off of and to base how we make our decisions. And I think those are the things that we're going to move forward and do in this county. And we just hope that the people who look at this and see how we're trying to do it can say, hey, we understand what you're trying to do. How can we support you? And I think that's the biggest thing we need to get out.
Well, there's one thing I want you guys to know. I certainly appreciate you taking the time to talk to me tonight. I will never take your quotes out of context. I will never, ever, ever misquote you guys. I'm not that way. I am one of these people, I speak what I think. Sometimes I speak what I think too quickly. That's why you see me kind of take a breath sometimes and step back before I speak, because I need to think about it. But just, if you ever want to talk, if you ever have something that you want to get out there, please, I will give you my name and my number. You can always reach me through our website, through Twitter or our Facebook. It's grassrootsgaston.com. That's our blog. We are gr_Gaston1 at Twitter, and our Facebook is gr_Gaston1 as well. I'm happy to talk to you guys anytime. Anytime you have anything you want to get out there.
We appreciate the invitation. Also appreciate the opportunity to talk tonight. I think a lot of people will get the message of what we're trying to do and how some explanation comes from what's happened this budget season. I think it being Commissioner Williams' first budget helps out a lot to getting to that point. But we're all learning through this and trying to do the best thing we can.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you.